Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Pacific Game Calls. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
They got a new goose call coming out, the BBG. It's great, but my favorite is still the BA Lester call that came out last year. So go to PacificCustomCalls.com, and you can get either. You're going to like either one, I promise. But for me...
You still like the old one?
I'm the BA. I'm a BA guy. You look like Pigpen over there. You got water bottles strung out everywhere. You got CBD lotion here and there. You got tea made up.
I do have a hot tea I'm drinking. That's my breakfast drink. I have my phone. I have a bottle of water that I did not throw away, and I have a hot bottle of water that somebody brought me yesterday. Oh. And I got my decoy from Cedar Run that is Harry's.
Well, you need to do a little bit
of
house. You need to do a little bit of housekeeping when this is over.
Yes, I do. With us today from the great state and the free state of Texas, where we are not wearing masks again, so piss off the government, Miss Georgina Holzmeier. Georgina, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys.
Did you see where California Lionsgate Studios started making all their employees wear masks again today?
No, I honestly quit listening to news. It's just ridiculous, and things like that.
It's ridiculous that I just can't imagine what they got held over someone to make everybody start wearing a mask. Masks don't work. It's proven.
Coming back in October.
They don't.
All major airlines are going to do it in October, and then a full lockdown by the end of the year again.
Well, it ain't happening at the Big Honker Lodge. So if you're locked down, come here and go hunting, because we are not locking down. It won't happen. Greg Abbott will not make us lock down.
He might not.
Well, fucking federal government ain't gonna do shit. So right now we have states' rights. We will not lock down. Do you agree with me, Georgina, or do you disagree with me on that?
I do, and I will tell you, I purchased my massage studio, signed papers on the Friday before they shut us down that Monday for 3 months for COVID. And it was the most ridiculous decision on their part. You couldn't come get a massage in a place where we are licensed and invested. They're constantly doing inspections for our disinfecting and sanitation levels are ridiculous. You couldn't come get a massage, but you could go down to the pawn shop.
That doesn't make sense.
Honestly, what kind of disinfecting do you think they're doing down there at the pawn shop?
My wife and I, we love to get a massage together. And didn't they make you wear, whenever you flipped over onto your back, didn't you have to put on a mask for a while? If you were face down, you were good, but as soon as you flipped over, didn't you have to put a mask on?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yes.
I thought so. I can't remember if we got a massage that year or not.
So you have a massage, what do you call it? A
studio.
Massage studio. I didn't want to say parlor. I didn't know the proper words.
Massage parlor.
Well, that's what they used to be called back in the day. So.
Yeah, and we're lobbying with the government, the state government, to get that designation removed from all political, legislative regulation because it's such a negative connotation.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So we refer to it as a studio.
So you do have some customers that still expect the thing from the 70s when they come in?
They never make it to the customer stage, but yeah, we do get those phone calls. And
they ask over the phone?
Oh, they ask over the phone. They ask through text. It's really disappointing. And, when I got into school, I expected a little bit. It's really disheartening, the frequency that it happens. So I've been doing this 7 years now. Yeah, about 7 years now. And I can count on at least once a month, maybe twice a month.
How do you build up your hand strength enough? And we're going to get to the other stuff here after a while, but I give my wife a massage for 30 seconds and I'm switching hands and using my elbow and how do you build up your hand strength?
It comes from doing the job all day, every day. And, you build up that grip strength. I tend to forget that I'm a massage therapist when I'm trying to do other things. And then I get, hey, that hurts, and it's okay, back off. But you just kind of get used to it. And, Texas requires 50 hands-on intern hours to get your license. And so by that point, you've built up a little bit. It's a totally different gig 7 years down the road when you're averaging 5 massages a day, 4, 5, 6 days a week. you tend to build that up.
Yeah. Is the first week on the job like just terrible? Like, are your hands just always just in agony whenever you get home after that first week or two?
Yeah, pretty much. I hit that point about 3 weeks in where you come home and you're icing from elbow to fingertip, trying just to get them to relax and chill out. It's kind of like football practice or basketball practice. You build it up, and they teach you proper techniques so that you're not overextending your back and things like that.
Let me tell you, one of the last massages I had, because we usually go on our anniversary. That's kind of our thing. We'll go to Lubbock, we'll stay in there, we'll get massages, and just kind of have a nice weekend in Lubbock. So I got the deep tissue massage. Get on in there. This lady grabbed me by my neck, and I'm telling you, I thought she hit every pressure point in my neck. I thought I pissed myself. It hurt. I was like, what in the... I thought there was some Japanese pressure point that I didn't know about in my neck. She hit that spot, and I felt like everything let loose. Thank God I didn't. That would have been very embarrassing.
Did you feel better when you left?
Yeah, you're a little sore. They tell you not to drink alcohol and drink plenty of water, and of course I don't, because I always have a mimosa when I'm there and after. But
boy, you are a manly man today. Wow, drinking the mimosas.
A good mimosa. So good massage.
Brian, your husband, an old friend of mine.
Yes.
Does he get a massage like every other day or something?
Oh, dude, let me tell you, he is so funny. When I started school, that was like one of the first conversations he had with me was, I don't want to be what we call a body model. I don't want to be the person that you work on and practice on.
But that ended.
I was like, okay. He had never had massage at that point. And it got to the point, I was working a full-time job, going to school at night, and still trying to fit in these 50 massages. I ended up with 125 because I did an advanced class. And it came to that point where I needed a body on the table. And he finally gave in and said, yeah. And he got up off the table and he's like, well, that wasn't too bad. I was like, no. And about 3 weeks later, he's going, hey, do you need some more practice? And I'm like, sure, hop on the table. And I will tell you, at this point, he gets more massages than I do.
Good for him. Smart man. I've always known he was pretty smart. There you go. That just proved it.
There you go.
All right. So you're a paranormal person. Do you believe in the paranormal? You tell me the strangest ghost story you have.
Ooh. Personal experience?
Yeah.
Yes. Or the strangest thing you've ever had someone tell you on your podcast.
No, let's do
Personal?
something that you've experienced, and then we can go back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I will tell you the most convincing experience I had was one of my very first ones. And I've been doing this for we're in that 10 to 13 year mark. I've been doing it. The very first time was we had gone to an old home in Marlin, Texas. I spent a lot of time in Marlin investigating, which is about 20 miles east of Waco. Okay. And there's an old house there. They use it as an event center. It's very Victorian styled with the Greek architecture and all of that good stuff. And we were there with a group of people. We had finished up doing the investigation, but we hadn't done any of the videoing and picture taking that we like to do, so that way you can remember if that lamp was in front of that camera, that kind of thing, If you're tracking those things, you know that something definitely moved or didn't move. Did you get me on that? Oh, okay. And so a friend of mine, Ronnie, was there, and we went back upstairs to get that kind of footage. And as we started up the stair, a little ball of orange light shot up about thigh level up in front of us and took a right turn at the top of the stairs. And Ronnie didn't see it. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, it was just in my head. Nobody else saw it. So we get up there, we take a right, and as we're walking through, there's this energy, and you'll hear us talk a lot about energy in the paranormal, but you could feel it building up, like we were right behind something. Something was right in front of us. And we worked our way through the rooms, and that feeling just got stronger and stronger. By the time we had circled back around to the last room, which was like a bedroom with twin beds, and it had an ensuite bathroom in it. And I was standing at the bedroom door as Ronnie walked through to do the videoing, and as he got just past the second twin bed, entering into the bathroom, I heard an old man raspy voice. I couldn't tell you what he said at that point, and I didn't stick around to find out. I'm not going to lie. I ran. Ronnie beat me down the stairs, though, and he was inside the room. That's how loud it was. And I actually saw, when I heard that, I saw Ronnie kind of duck down and like flinch, I guess would be a good word for it. And that's when I took off. So once we get downstairs and we start talking about it, what he actually heard and captured on the video was a very raspy old man voice telling him to get out. And what he was telling me was when he flinched like that was because he actually felt like the breath, a hot breath of somebody right there at his ear. And so we got some amazing evidence that whole night, pictures with orbs and things. Not really an orb, but it's hard to explain without looking at the pictures, but there were some photographic evidence to back up what was happening all night long. So that was probably the most convincing experience.
Both of you heard the same thing in that room. You heard the raspy voice,
yes.
He heard the old man raspy voice, and he actually was able to interpret what this voice said. Get out.
Yeah, evidently it was like that spirit of that older man was right there, standing right next to him, whereas I was across the room. It was that kind of experience. It was awesome. I was hooked at that point.
How long had you been doing it up until this point?
This was probably my second investigation.
Oh, and you found something that fast. So ever since then, you've been off and running with it.
Oh, definitely. I get into the historical research because I want to be able to debunk that stuff. There's so much fakery out there. It's kind of like the Bigfoot thing, you know? There's a lot of fakery. So I want to know that what we're getting actually pertains to the location. So if I'm talking to somebody, like a psychic medium or someone who's telling me that this spirit is describing a scene from the 1920s, but then you find out that building wasn't even built in the 20s.
Big problem, right?
Big problem. So, you know, that's where I really like to do the historical research to back up the spirit communication that we get.
I want your opinion on this because I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer for this, but I'm confused. When you die, you go to heaven. But no. Or you go to hell. You don't, you say. Where do you go to?
Well, I mean, nowhere really until...
So we're all just kind of floating around until the end of the end times.
Depends on my interpretation. It just depends on what your interpretation is when you die. I mean...
That's my question then.
I don't think that it's ready until he comes back.
Okay, so we're in this... And I've had other people say immediately go to heaven.
Or what do you think?
There's not a right or wrong. Right. We don't know what happens. Nobody's prepared to come back from death and say, hey, here's our steps. Be sure you do. You know, all of that stuff is man-made interpretation of a belief system, you know. I think there's a lot of discussion about it being, you know, we are energetic beings. We do tend to, basically all of our cells run on an electric current, in the most layman of terms. And so that's where some of that comes from, is that energy is just out there and we have free will on this side. Why wouldn't we have free will on that side? You know?
Well, I mean, it's documented that when people die, they get lighter by a couple ounces, right? I mean,
it is actually documented. There are some really interesting experiments that people have done to explain that. And it's really fun to get into that level of research from the Victorian era and before, because it's pretty barbaric. Yeah, it's really pretty barbaric.
So you think our soul weighs a couple ounces?
It weighs a couple. I want to say, this is just off the top of my head, I think like once you die, it's like 7 ounces is the weight difference. So something obviously leaves your body for you to account for that weight difference.
Most people, when they die, they shit or piss themselves.
Maybe
That could be your 7 ounces. Here's my question. What I was asking earlier about was the going to purgatory or going to heaven or to hell. But you got some things that stick around. Like, I'm a firm believer that my dad is still at this lodge walking around. Well, did he get booted out of heaven or hell already and just halfway in between, or is he just waiting for that? I don't know. I used to not really be a believer in ghosts. I believe but I had an experience one time that I'm a firm believer in, because we had something at our house one time with our youngest son for a long time. We had a lot of issues. And I told him one time when this first started, I said, listen, this is just your imagination. I said, I'll prove it to you. I said, if there's something in this house making noise, and I'll be a son of a bitch if something didn't make a freaking noise. And I'm telling you right now, it was right next to me by the wall, and I didn't imagine anything. He sat there, he goes, you explain to me now what that is. Since then, I've been a believer. I didn't have any kind of way to explain it because I heard it. I mean, it was there. So I'm a firm believer now in that. I am. But have been confused why these people are here, because a ghost won't hurt you. It can make you hurt yourself. But I don't understand what are they waiting on? I mean, like the one you went to, the guy told you to get out. Does he just not want you in his old place?
Yeah, he was come to find out, he was actually a grumpy old man in life. And I do believe my experience has kind of been along those lines. If you're an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole on the other side. And if you're a sweet old lady or a sweet young lady, you're going to be sweet. That's been our experiences so far in communication. And I will tell you also, one of the things that I've heard from spirit is they like to visit their happy places. And yeah, I wouldn't hesitate one moment to say that Ron's still running around there at the lodge. He loved that place. It was basically home. So I can definitely see him being there.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because our pantry is where they have the issues. One day they saw some boxes just fall off the shelves. He loved the kitchen, so that's where he's bound to be at. But like I said, things don't bother me. I've seen shadows in buildings before that you can't explain, and light orbs and things. So I'm a believer in the whole system. I just have always been confused as what are they waiting on? You know, like this old grouchy guy that was an asshole, is eventually he going to end up going to heaven or hell, or is he going to stay in that transition forever? And Andy believes that you don't go, you're just all floating around until we go to
I didn't say floating around, but you're not anywhere. He said asleep.
Okay.
Well, maybe they woke up early.
Okay. I mean, that's what I don't know. Do you think could you see Dad floating around here?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see it. I don't. So I have actually never experienced anything. And I don't know if it is because I don't really, it's not that I'm not a believer, but I'm not looking for it. Does that make sense? Like if you're out hunting and you're worried about a snake, and all you're thinking about is snake. Eventually, you're going to see a snake because that's all you thought about.
Because that's what you're focusing on.
So whenever I'm in a place, my first thought is not, I wonder where the spooky ghost is.
So you wouldn't have a problem staying in a fucking haunted house, like the Conjuring house or anything?
Demons are different, Jeff. Demons are different. But just a little bit of hearsay about that. I'm not going to go to an insane asylum and spend the night. I'm not going to go to an old hospital. I'm not going to go to where Lorena Bobbitt, cut up her parents or
she cut a penis up.
Oh,
you're thinking Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden.
And you can stay the night there. I was there.
You can, yeah. So, I mean, places where bad things have happened, I'm not going to do it because that would be uncomfortable. But just, an old house or something. I live in an old house. I mean, and now that was about the only time that I could have maybe tricked myself into feeling like we gutted our old house. We gutted our house, and it was an old house built in the 50s, and the couple lived there. They built it. They died there.
They died in the house?
I think one of them did, yeah.
Ooh, fuck that.
But, you kind of psych yourself out, and then you start hearing things and seeing shadows.
Yeah. And it's real easy to see those people and figure that out when you're on a tour or an investigation or one of these public events, it's very easy to figure out whether or not you need to pay attention to that person's reaction or not. And I'll tell you, that is some of the funnest people watching that you'll ever experience. It really is. But, I think once we pass, there is the theory of reincarnation, and there are a lot of people that are leaning more toward that now. It's becoming more acceptable, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense because it does give, and let's face it, no one wants to go to hell. Everyone wants to think, and we know some really bad people. We really want to think Jeffrey Dahmer and that type of character is going to hell.
He was born again.
But yeah, so there's that thought process that once you pass, you kind of transition into a next level, and where that reincarnates, I don't know. But then you get into kind of a numbers game when you start talking about actually reincarnating and how many people are actually here on Earth at any given time and things like that.
Didn't Warren Beatty think he was Napoleon in a previous life or somebody? I think Warren Beatty was a big. There's a famous actor that was a big time reincarnating guy and a lady, and I thought it was Warren Beatty and Shirley MacLaine and their brother and sister, if I'm right.
It could be. I know George Patton, General Patton, believed that he was. I don't think it was Napoleon, but it was another one of those high level war people. What am I trying to think?
A leader.
A leader, a general in a big major war. I think he actually felt like he went all the way back even to the Greek and Roman times.
We need him to come back.
So
yes, I'm reading it. I'm trying to find the answer.
On Warren Beatty?
No, on Patton. So he actually thinks he had come back several times. This says, according to this, he was among many warriors. Patton thought he had been in a former life a prehistoric mammoth hunter, a Greek hoplite who fought the Persians, a soldier of Alexander the Great who fought the Persians during the siege of Tyre, Hannibal of Carthage, who was brutal tactics and forced loyalty. So he thought he came back several times.
Yes.
God, I don't know if I'd want to come back to the future we got going right now. I think I'd rather be able to come back and be like 1965 again. Start over then.
But there's also an interesting theory that you come back and you can improve each time.
Yes.
Right? Like, I like that thought.
Right. Yeah. I struggle with the theory that you and your little soul tribe had this little meeting and you decided that Andy's going to play this role and Jeff's going to play that role and Georgina's going to do this. And that way everybody learns the lesson that their soul has chosen to learn. That's really complex and a lot of planning the shit that happens here on Earth. In my life, there's no way on Earth, back when I was in high school, I thought I would ever become a massage therapist or get involved in the paranormal so much that I actually speak at paracons and things like that. You know, I don't see that as being a soul path necessarily.
Do you have a hard time, like, whenever, because I'm sure you've had to do it, whenever you've had to, like, debunk something and, like, somebody wanted to believe something so badly and then you're like, no, it's just, it's full of shit. It's just something of in your imagination, something you wanted to see.
Yeah. It's interesting because I actually hang with a very intelligent group of paranormal investigators. Dr. Cindy Little is a parapsychologist. She actually has published papers in the psychology journals and things along those lines, along with some of her partners. And so what we've actually found, and I agree, one of her research partners made the comment that belief trumps experience and evidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, you get to a point to where you explain that is not paranormal because look, the water from the air conditioning condensation is dripping on that dog food bowl, making that noise. That is not paranormal. And they will still swear that it is. Yeah. And it's right in front of them. You can't do anything with that. You just have to kind of walk away.
Yeah. Well, some of that can be like religion too. Like, if somebody were to, if you are dead set in your religion and somebody tells you like, no, that's not it. We had an interesting discussion a couple weeks ago in church, and it was, I think that if Jesus Christ walked into this room right now and said, I'm Jesus, follow me, this is the way, nobody would get up. Because your mind, you just can't wrap your head around it. So you'd be like, who's this fucking homeless guy with shitty clothes and he's dirty and smelly and want me to follow him?
I ain't going to San Francisco.
We're not doing that. No.
I definitely would be like Thomas. Hey, show me those marks.
Right. Yeah. Well, they've healed up. It's like, well, you're not giving me much to go on here. But people just have such a deep belief that a lot of times they don't realize the truth when it's just staring them right in the face.
Mm-hmm. They don't want it to be, the denial is a very strong thing.
And I think a lot of people that have lost someone, having them as a ghost is better than not having them at all. Right? So it's like, it's a comforting thing.
Very much so. And there are people who, I have a lot of friends that are psychic mediums and just straight mediums, and they get a lot of people. That's what they're interested in. Probably about 80% of their business is people who want to contact dad or their best friend, and it's generally about making some kind of resolution or, that kind of, the number one question is, are they okay? Where are they? Are they okay? And my understanding from talking with them is everyone's fine. Once they pass, they're fine, like, shoot, yeah, they're not hurting, It's all of those kind of cliche things that people say at funerals. And when you lose someone, is they're in a better place, they're no longer in pain, but
so if you had to put a percentage on it, how many mediums do you think are actually mediums? And how many of them do you think are just good magicians and good at getting enough information to kind of make their client happy?
I would say probably 10, maybe 12%.
Really?
Or real mediums.
Wow.
Are real psychic mediums. They're probably 90% are just very good at reading people and talk a good game, honestly. And, it's a shame how many of them are out there that are so fake. It doesn't take much to cold read somebody. Even if you don't know anything about Andy, you can look at Andy immediately and realize, okay, he's probably got a decent job. He's clean, so you can make those assumptions from there. And then you notice, well, what does his fingers and his hands look like? These are all things that you can take in very quickly and make an assumption or two, ask a couple of leading questions, and the next thing you know, you've got that little bit of information that may make Andy believe that Madam So-and-so is talking to his
I could do that. I could bullshit my way through that.
I don't think I could.
I think I could easily do that. I was in, we were in Salem, Massachusetts. How were you in college or a freshman in college, Randy? Maybe. Anyways, we went into a Wiccan store, a store. I don't remember what it was. It was, we walked in the door and I wanted to get my palm read just because I wanted to do it. I've never done it. I thought that'd be cool as shit. And we walk in and we didn't say shit to this lady at all. And the lady behind the counter, she said, cards are better. It's the first thing she said to me. I go, excuse me? She goes, cards are better than having your palms read. Now, I hadn't said shit about this. So I said, okay. So I went in this room and this lady read my cards for me. And I'm going to tell you something. She was pretty spot on some shit. Not stuff and I was thought, I'm not giving her no fucking information. I'm not going to give her anything. I let her do the talking. And she said things about me that was going to happen in my future that happened.
Well, like what'd she say? Your dad's gonna die? Well,
No.
You hit that one. We're all gonna go through that.
She told me, she goes, you live in a real small town. I said, yes, ma'am, I do. She goes, you're gonna be a leader there. I was mayor in a year. I wouldn't have no plan on running for mayor or nothing. Didn't even think about it. And she told me that. That was part of it. She talked about the boys. She was right on.
That's pretty broad. You're going to be, okay.
Andy's
Number one,
a negative fucking
no,
Nancy
hold on.
about
Number
shit.
one, she probably knew you were from you probably knew you were from a country boy because of your accent. So she's like, you're in a small town. Well, that's 50-50. You're either in a small town or you're not.
I could have been from Houston.
Well, you look like a bumpkin walking around Salem. You know,
Okay.
you look like a tourist. So obviously you're from a small town.
Okay.
So she's got that going for her. And then she's like, well, you're going to be a leader. Well, that could be anything. I mean, I'm sure she probably knew you had your own business. So
why would she think that? Everybody in Knox City owns their own business.
You've got that going for you. I'm sure you leaked it, Jeff. You're not.
I didn't leak shit.
You're not keeping your cards close to your vest.
The scary part is how right she was about the boys. She's spot on the deal. She said, one of your boys, your middle son, is going to give you all kinds of problems and trouble.
Once
was
again,
she right on that?
That's going with the odds.
On the middle child?
That's going with the odds.
So anyways, she was really close on a lot of things. But I went in there just being curious more than anything. But it was scary how close she was. But the thing that struck me was as soon as we walked in the door, unless she had a microphone outside, she said, cards are better than getting your palms read. I was like, wow. So anyways, Andy had his cards done too. How close is she on you?
I don't even remember what she said.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was my experience. I had another experience that's really weird. I was driving to the lodge one day, and before you get to the lodge, about 3 miles up, we have a thing. It's old nature trails, what they call it, and it goes. It's a creek that runs into the river. And I was going through there, and I got about 200 or 300 yards from it. And all of a sudden, my radio and everything went to this white noise. And it was like, now, people are going to think I'm fucking nuts when I tell this story, but it was almost like it got foggy inside of my vehicle. And I clenched down on my steering wheel, and I looked out my side passenger window. Now, this is where people are really going to think I'm fucking nuts. You know the angel off of Van Halen that's smoking the cigarette? That angel, without the cigarette, was flying next to my freaking vehicle. And I'm telling you, for 100 yards, I thought, oh, shit, I'm fixing to have a crash and die. I'm dying right now. And then I got up out of the bottom of that deal, going 70 miles an hour, and everything, the radio came back on. It was clear and everything. So I come in, I said, fuck, I got to tell somebody. So I told Michelle this. Michelle said, maybe it was a guardian angel. I don't know. But I saw it. I lived it. It happened. Have no explanation for it. Don't even know what it was about. But I thought I was dying. I thought, oh, shit, I just had a bad wreck, and I'm going to heaven or hell. And it wasn't getting hot, so I thought, thank God I got that past that deal. And I thought, boy, I sure am going to have to answer for a lot of shit I wish I wouldn't have done.
Well, and that's one of those things. I'm not well versed on angels, but that particular angel is considered a cherub. And I would have to actually look up, because it's been a while since I've done any angel studies, about what that particular role of that particular angel is. And that's one of those comforting things. Angels come from God. They are God created kind of thing. So anytime you see an angel, it doesn't mean somebody died necessarily. Maybe you did need a little. Usually it's Archangel Michael that comes through for protection and guardianship like that.
Well, this was the Van Halen angel without the cigarette.
So, this is
Little old cherub.
Yep, that's a cherub.
I'm trying to find. I'm looking it up right now to try to find.
Oh, good.
But I remember it just like it was yesterday. But I mean, as soon as I come in, Michelle goes, oh, you ain't gonna believe this. It scared the hell out of me.
How tired were you?
I wouldn't tell you. It was during
was this,
hunting season, so I'm sure I was stressed out and stuff.
Do you think you could have fallen asleep?
No.
For just like a brief moment?
I don't know, Andy. We can pull this apart all day. I'm just telling you what happened. I told you 100% of what happened. There's nothing going to change it. But that's what I thought of after that. I really did. I thought, oh, shit, I just died. I had a bad wreck, and I just died.
Well, and you read a lot of stories like that, you know, where people who were in horrible car wrecks, they felt like they probably should have died, but they had an angel or a glowing figure pick them up and move them or things like that. So I definitely believe in angels. And of course, if you believe in angels, you have to believe in demons, that there's a balance there. I will tell you, in the paranormal world, as far as investigating goes, they're not nearly as frequent as people want you to think they are. They're
demons?
Just not.
Demons. Have you come across any in your time?
I have not come across what I felt like was an authentic demonic presence. I have been and experienced some negative former human spirits. I've also been around conjured entities that were negative. And now I sound crazy, but there's a different energy feel about it all, you know? And so I would say that I haven't actually been in the presence of a true demon, but I have been in the presence of some conjured entity that
what
was
does
a
that
negative
mean,
being.
conjured? Like you,
Conjuring.
during your time, during your investigation, you brought this thing up?
Oh, hell no. I don't do that shit. Someone else had in the past, for whatever reason, whether it was, you know, a cult or just a bunch of dumbass witches that didn't know what they were doing. The one instance I'm thinking about was very intentional. And I think it was honestly a group of women that lived at the house at one point in time. And that was their practice. And they conjured up this thing to basically be a tool of their revenge. And it went horribly wrong, like they always do, because you do not have control over this stuff, period. It's supernatural for a reason, right?
It's in the name.
So, yeah. And
it's in the name. It's a super.
Pardon? Oh,
you're just natural.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, people are idiotic with some of this stuff. And all of that comes down to, I've investigated that house about 6 or 7 times at this point with different groups of people. And through spirit communication and research, that topic kept coming up. And there's that same different feeling that you get when that particular entity is there in the house or on the property. And it's an interesting thing to deal with.
So do you feel it right away, or is this something that's like, oh, I got people at the house, I better go over there? Or like, have there been times where you were there and you never encountered this negative energy? Okay.
Yes. The first time it was more of, it's that shift in the environment energy feeling. And, you know, and it's just like, you know, when you walk in the room and somebody's just had a fight, that's the example you hear a lot. You weren't there to witness the fight, but there's still so much residual anger that you can kind of feel that. It's that level of difference versus just walking into a room where a bunch of people had been laughing and having a good time. It's that level of feel. And what I've found is the longer I do this, the more sensitive to that energy change I am. And so that's where that comes in, because you're learning what to look for. You're experiencing things, you know.
I went to, Michelle is into all this. She loves all the paranormal, psychics, weird, wild shit. She loves this stuff. So we've been to the Lizzie Borden house. I've been to the Amityville horror house. And the Amityville horror house and the Lizzie Borden house are both just people where people went nuts and killed people.
Well, he was a drug addict.
Who was?
Yeah.
The Amityville horror house.
Was that guy a doper?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Well, I didn't know that. But anyways, because I didn't care. It's a freaking house. I felt sorry for the people that lived in that neighborhood with people like us driving up and down gawking all day talking about it. But, you know, but like the Lizzie Borden house, that's just a girl that snapped and killed everybody in the fucking house with an axe. I don't believe that it was a malicious spirit that did her. I just think she was a rotten person.
Yeah, it's same thing with the Villisca Axe House in Iowa.
Me and Andy had a chance to spend the night in that house.
The which house? The what house in Iowa? Axe House?
Yeah, the Vasilia, however you say it. I think it's
Axe House in Iowa. Oh yeah,
Should've
Villa.
brought some of this
Oh, good luck with that. Villisca?
Yeah.
Vasilla?
Vasilla or
What happened here?
Yeah, I think is the right. Some random man hid out in the attic of this house while the family was at church. They had 4 kids of their own or 2 kids of their own, and then a couple of neighbor kids came over and stayed the night. And then in the middle of the night, the guy came out of the attic with an axe and killed all 6 members in the house. And they never found him. It's unsolved till this day. They have some suspects, but the activity level there has been documented is off the charts. It's one of my bucket
You want to
list
do this house
items. Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Andy, would you stay there or not?
I wouldn't stay there or not. I would go. I would go do an investigation. 8 people died.
8. We had
Yeah.
they rent that house out.
Eight.
You can rent it for the night and go stay there because we were going to do a TV show on it and go stay the night. But I'm not into that shit at all. I'm
Yeah,
telling you
they
right
do.
now, it would scare the piss out of me.
The killer or killers used the blade of the axe on Sarah while using the blunt end on the rest of the victims. Whoo,
It
boy.
was crazy.
Could you imagine finding that?
Yeah. And some of the evidence that I've seen on some of the shows, and then just following other people, normal people, whatever, people like me who do investigations that don't have TV shows. Okay. It's very credible what they come up with. That's definitely on my bucket list. That one, Pennhurst, I got a long list. I could spend a year, maybe two, just traveling the United States, hitting all these spots.
Would you
that I
stay
love
at
to
the
investigate.
what's the hotel in LA or San Francisco that's so haunted? Andy,
Cecil.
the Cecil. Would you
Is
stay
it
there?
the Cecil? Yes.
You know,
Yes, I
my
would.
mom grew up in a little town in Missouri, and they had a guy that was a caretaker at their funeral home, and a mother and the daughter would come, and I think the daughter was a teenager, and they would bitch at this guy relentlessly every day about there's a blade of grass by Papa's, just constantly on his ass every single day, and he snapped and he fucking chopped both of them up with an axe too. You got to be some kind of pissed off to chop somebody up with an axe.
Definitely. We stayed, one of our first investigations was in New Orleans. My friend Rachel and I went early. There was going to be an event, a public event later in the weekend. So Rachel and I went out on Thursday and actually stayed at the bed and breakfast that we were going to be investigating that weekend as part of the event. That was a very active location also. It's called the Blue 60, and it's in New Orleans. Michelle will love it if she likes doing the paranormal investigating thing. And we had stayed, our room was right off the sidewalk. And New Orleans, it's loud. It's crazy loud. But we had stayed in that room, and on my trail, I use a trail cam for capturing paranormal activity. They're great for that. And so I had gone out one morning. Mm-hmm. I'm an early bird, so I get up early. I couldn't find coffee mugs in the bed and breakfast, so I walked down to the Walgreens, which is about 3 blocks away, to get coffee mugs and coffee for breakfast. And I came back. The door to the bed and breakfast is one of the key locks where you have to punch in a combination to get in. And as I was coming through the door, Rachel sat up in bed and said, "Wait, weren't you just in the bathroom?" And you got to keep in mind, Rachel, her husband snores so bad that she sleeps with earplugs in and an eye mask on and with headphones on. And so she doesn't hear things at night because of that. And I was like, "No, I just walked in. I've just been down at Walgreens to get coffee mugs." And she's like, "I swear, I just heard you in the bathroom ruffling around in your makeup bag like you were getting ready for the day." And I'm like, "Nope." So we immediately started investigating, and we couldn't get the bathroom door open. Somehow it just was like stuck. But it's New Orleans, could be just humidity, right? Finally get in there, check the noise, and Rachel's like, "Yep, that's exactly it. That's the noise." So later in the day, right after that, we were going to go shopping down at the French Quarter. So I set up my trail cam, and you can follow this little orb going from the bathroom over the bed, over to my bag where I kept my makeup bag. And there was one other time we were getting ready to go somewhere, and I didn't turn off the camera, and you can see that little light following me in the room because I've got my makeup bag in my hand.
I was
pardon?
agreeing. That's crazy. It followed you in the room.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it was following, and we were able to actually find the newspaper article about a murder that happened in that room, in that house in the 70s. And what it was a homosexual guy was killed. And it was basically a hate crime is what had happened. And so we make the assumption that it was probably him, and being he was also a drag queen. That's what his source of income was at the time. Makeup was a very important part of his life when he was alive. So that was really cool. That's what gives me the chills, is to be able to pull out that newspaper article and find all of that information. It was crazy. That was one of a crazy experience.
Yeah, and it was all, and it's all documented on your trail cam footage. Oof. Yep. What is that like? Like, how do you watch it? Do you like fast forward and wait for something to kind of flash across?
No, it's a trail cam.
Well, what about like when the cameras are just rolling?
Yeah, when the cameras are rolling, and I tell you, when you first start investigating, you get all your tools out and you get all your instruments set up, and then you spend 24 hours reviewing all that shit. So you very quickly get it narrowed down to one or two. But when I'm looking on trail cam footage, it's just a single picture at a time. So that makes it pretty easy. And it's pretty easy to see that if you're in a bedroom and I'm standing there with a makeup bag and there's a little ball of light and it's in 4 different positions in 4 different frames, then that's a little more credible than showing up just
because like a lot of times, like if it's just one frame, a lot of can it be like dust in the atmosphere or something that just reflecting?
Oh, easily. Yeah. 98% of the orbs that are presented or light anomalies are not paranormal. And if you can take any ball of light or whatever, any picture, and zoom it out to the point that the pixelation makes it whatever you want it to be. That's called pareidolia. That's just your brain trying to make sense of what it's seeing or hearing. 98% of the orbs, it's just dust, bugs.
Have they ever debunked the morpholights?
I was looking up the Anson lights.
Yeah.
The morpholights,
yeah, they have.
What was it?
Marfa lights is an environmental condition that doesn't happen very often, and that's what makes it so random and rare. It has to do with the elevation of where they see the lights and the temperature change between the higher elevation and that lower spot.
So it's just a natural occurrence.
It's a natural occurrence. It doesn't occur often, which is the reason you can't see it every time you go out there. But it basically is like a fog. It's enough of a temperature difference that it's like a fog or a mist develops, and then whatever light source is in the area refracting through that. So it could be headlights, it could be somebody's flashlight, it could be somebody's back porch light. And it just works out.
In Puerto Rico, we did not see it, but Puerto Rico's got a bay that lights up at night with phosphorus or something. It's a natural occurrence. You imagine being the first person to drive by in a boat at night there, had never heard of it, and like, what the hell's going on here?
Well, and then there's also something else. Like I think there's a kelp or something that will become like translucent. I mean, imagine seeing that, like the ocean being lit up. But I think I know what you're talking about, because there was one morning I was going goose hunting, and I could see the lights of Haskell and like all of I could see the gas station lights, and I could see it like crystal clear. And I've never really been. I take that same route every single day to go hunt, and I've never seen them like I did that one day. And it had to be just like what you were explaining, like the dew point and everything else. Just kind of for whatever reason, I could see it plain as day. Whereas on other mornings, I never. I mean, I can tell there's a town over there, but I can't see the red for the gas and the green for the diesel on the gas station lights.
Yeah, and 2 minutes later, you wouldn't have seen it that clearly.
Right. Like it was crazy how clear it was.
What about Gettysburg? They said that's the most haunted place in America. Have you been to Gettysburg?
I haven't yet. That's on my list, and that place will take a month to investigate. My friend Rachel that I was talking about a while ago, they went last year, and she said it's like from the minute whether you're driving or walking, it's like you can't get away from it. It is so prolific in Gettysburg. And there have been some really interesting documentation come out of Gettysburg. I'm looking forward to one day getting to go do Gettysburg. That would be a blast.
It's the most evil place I've ever been. You can feel it. I don't know if it's evil's the word. It's just very, I went one afternoon, and it was in February, and it was cold and snowy, and it was just an afternoon, and drove through it and stuff. you just don't feel alone there the whole time. You feel like there's just a very weird feeling there. And then a buddy of mine was deer hunting up there a couple years ago, and I called him and I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm deer hunting." I go, "Where you at?" He goes, "Oh, Gettysburg." I said, "Oh, fuck that." I said, "I wouldn't want to go to a deer stand there." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "That's the most haunted place in America." I said, "It's got all kinds of evil spirits and shit there." I said, "You think of all the people that died and all the turmoil, and it's a terrible place." He called me the next day. He goes, "I wish you wouldn't have fucking said nothing." He said, "I sat on that deer stand at first light," and he said, "all I could think about was all them damn ghosts and stuff you told me about." He said, "I didn't sleep all night at the hotel." He said, I was uncomfortable until that sun came up.
It says upwards of 51,000 people died on that battlefield.
Yep.
Yeah,
But you can just feel. You can
That's a
just
lot of
feel it.
trauma.
You can just feel it when you're there. I mean, you really can. It's very unnerving.
I stood on a skirmish line, a Civil War skirmish line this last year in Tennessee when I was turkey hunting, and I didn't feel anything scary, but it was cool. Thinking that, like, that's the only thing that's keeping somebody safe is just being on the other side of this wall. It's pretty neat. And, like, you could tell it was, like, the old stone that you see, and really cool moment.
I would figure that a lot of World War II places like the Normandy would have a lot of spirits there, too.
I would think so.
That's a tourist attraction now.
I would definitely.
Everybody goes to the beach in Normandy.
I would like to go see it.
Really?
I would think it would be a very somber place. Like Gettysburg, that's the word I'm looking for, not evil. It's very somber, but it's just really,
Very somber.
It's a very unnerving feeling. You feel like somebody's right there with you, that it just was a weird feeling. Then when you left, you didn't feel that way anymore.
So when you're going to these places, what do you try to do? What's your like routine? Will you do a little bit of, how much do you do? A bunch of research, a little research, or no research so that everything can kind of be fresh? And then you do your investigation, and then you kind of go back and look at the history of the place.
It depends on the purpose of the investigation. If I'm doing a residential, which I don't do very often anymore, I do all of my research up front. And that includes basically a background check on the individuals as well. You get some real weirdos with that kind of stuff going on. In fact, my number one advice to anyone that wants a paranormal investigation of their home is to put down the crack pipe and clean their house and call me in 6 weeks. That will resolve 90% of all residentials. Okay. That's based on experience, by the way. So, if it's a private residential one, I'll do all of my research up front, and then I'm really picky about who I will go on that with, because you need people with very strong faith on those if you are going to end up running into actual paranormal. And then we set up cameras, recorders, EMF meters, our, motion detectors, just pretty much everything in that situation. And usually it may take 1 or 2 investigations to figure out if there's really something there or not. Out of the 20 or so that I did before I quit doing them, only 2 of them had legitimate activity. And that was interesting. And that did actually just pertain to a teenager playing with a Ouija board. So that was interesting. If I'm doing like an event at the Palace Theater in Marlin, Texas, that's one of the fundraisers they do about 3 to 4 times a year. We host a paranormal university. And so we teach people how to use the equipment and then do investigation and then turn them loose to do their own investigating. So in that case, I usually have all of my equipment, but I'm not really doing investigating. And I already know the history because I've been investigating there for 10 plus years. So not so much. We had the opportunity in Waco a couple of weeks ago to do a historic home that is like a public venue type place. And I didn't get to go on that one. It really sucked because we were picking up some really good stuff. But I did all the historical research ahead of time. And then Robbie, one of my psychic medium friends, when I'm working with psychic medium friends, we usually start a couple of weeks ahead of time with them texting me or emailing me anything that they're picking up about the location we're going to be doing. And that gives me a starting spot, if you will, when I'm doing my research. And then, of course, I pull deeds and any kind of historical information on the location I can find, any arrest records that are out there, things like that. And then as we get closer, I don't share any of that information with my psychic medium friends, but I'll share it with other investigators so that we have a line of questioning, if you will, to follow. And
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. And then we do the investigation, and at the end of the investigation, I usually let my psychic mediums know where it matched up and where it didn't, kind of thing.
It's crazy as many of these.
That's how I kind of do that.
You said so many of them.
If it's just investigation.
So many of them are hoaxes. The biggest witch hunt ever in America was in Salem, and that was a big hoax. Those girls made that up.
Well, no, it was it was fungus on their. They had a late freeze or an early freeze. I can't remember the details, but it was the flour that they made was moldy, and it created hallucinations.
So those girls made that up. They did not like the teacher or someone's daughter or something, and they it was basically a bullying scheme, is what it was.
Ergot. Let me look it up. Ergot and Salem.
But yeah, I have heard this about the moldy bread or something, but the whole thing was a hoax. The girls made it up because they were mad at somebody over something. And they killed like 11 or 13 people or whatever the hell it was. But so you're finding out that most of the time that you deal with these things, they're hoaxes more than they are true. Correct? Have you been to the Minger Hotel in San Antonio? Now,
it's been so long. I went once back in high school. Okay, so I wasn't in the paranormal at that point. And I've not been back since. I would love to go because I hear it's active, and I hear it's active from legitimate people that I know.
That story there, if I'm, and I could be wrong on this, the guy that was the King Ranch, the captain that started the King Ranch, his mistress and him would meet there. And they got into a fight, and he threw her out of the 3rd or 4th floor window and killed her, if I'm right. And they think that she haunts that place, I think.
That's interesting. There is a female spirit that is seen there, usually in the mezzanine area. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head who she is. And part of the struggle with all the research is I do all this research when I'm doing the location, and then it kind of falls away.
I understand that.
So
now, how often, when do you believe that you felt something? Is it when it is kind of, multiple people felt it? Like when you're investigating the Minger Hotel or whatever, and you've got your team and you see we'll use your example from earlier. If you would have just heard the voice and your partner did not, would you dismiss that? Or what would you do with that information? Could you dismiss the orb because you're like, okay, that could have just been me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have dismissed it. Although having that energetic shift, seeing the orb, having the energetic shift, and hearing the voice, I would give some credence to that, but I would not have necessarily felt like I experienced something paranormal.
Right. So when it's felt by multiple people, then it's kind of gospel.
It's just one thing. There's kind of more credibility to it. I wouldn't even go gospel, credibility, because there is such thing as group hallucination. And we all have those friends and people we know that we can just start, put an idea in their head. I have a relative that I guarantee you I can start talking about, I'm not feeling so good. Oh, I got a headache. This is headache. And 2 hours later, they're in bed sick, So the suggestion is very powerful. And especially in a situation like that where you're already, it's like looking for the snake example you were talking about earlier, Andy. You're already psyched up. You've been told it's a haunted location. You've heard 3 different stories about different things. The energy's kind of high because, it's a group of people. And, I've had people freak out where someone just bumped a chair with their knee and think it was paranormal, So there's a lot that goes into it for me. I don't think everything I do or experience is paranormal. And I try to do, I follow the triangulation thing. If three things are pointing to it being paranormal, it's probably paranormal. But then again, we don't even really know what the paranormal is. So then,
Right. Yeah.
Is it really? You can get into some really wild conversations along those lines.
Ouija boards? You mentioned that one of the two of the places or one of them was just teenagers playing with a Ouija board. What did they bring? Something that was not too friendly, or what they bring in?
They brought it was a family situation where it was a step situation, a mother and father. The father was the stepfather, and it was a teenage boy, 14, 15, having trouble in school, not really happy with his family situation, kind of had those kind of negative things going on anyway. And they were having some behavioral issues with him, and he was just kind of being a turd, like they do. This is normal in that environment. And so to piss his parents off, he starts hanging out with people, and they bring home a Ouija board, and they decide to do a Ouija board session in the living room. They did not think that the Ouija board session was successful. They didn't really feel like there was a spirit talking to them. And so they did it multiple times. And at that point that she reached out to us, there was a lot of noises and some poltergeist type activity where things were being moved, but when you live in a house with people move things. So there's a lot of that going on. And then you get into the conversations with them, and based on the spirit communication, using one of our psychic mediums was there as well. They didn't close out the Ouija board session. That's a major boo-boo. It's a major boo-boo. It's like leaving the door wide ass open to let anything in that wanders by. And they're going to wander into that situation because of the low-level negativity and the children being there. And it was thankfully not a very bad. We took care of it pretty quickly. It only took a couple of cleansing and closing of that Ouija board session. And of course, they had thrown the Ouija board away. That always makes it harder when you're trying to resolve these situations. If they throw it away, then, it's like leaving the open door floating around out there in the dumpster. Who knows? I don't know. That was interesting because we were actually in the bedroom of the boy, and we'd set up a video camera in the living room on a table in the corner facing toward where we were hearing the noises. And the psychic medium that was with us at the time was picking up on something. I can't remember what it was. And she was picking up on the fact that it was the Ouija board session. And the parents didn't know about the Ouija board once we did our investigation and went back and visited with them. And we heard this loud wood on wood racket. And as we were coming through, to the point that I jumped, and it's on videotape, but I did. I jumped. It scared me as I was coming through the door. And that was my first thought was, I bumped the table. But then when I looked down, and it was hardwood floors, there was one of those old wooden spindles that they used in sewing machine factories rolling down and around on the floor. So at that point, it was like, okay, we're dealing with something, guys. We're dealing with something. And so, at that point, we closed down the investigation. Everyone stepped outside, and then we basically did our prayer and our cleansing, and then came back into the house and cleansed and closed the portals. So,
is it with sage? Is that what you clean? Is that what you cleanse the house with?
You can cleanse with anything. White sage is one of the more potent ones. The problem with cleansing, if you don't believe in it, you're not doing anything but pissing it off. Yeah. There's so much of the cleansing process has to do with intent and your personal belief. If you personally believe that only a Catholic exorcist is going to be able to solve your problem, I'm not going to be able to help you because I'm not a Catholic exorcist. If you think the white sage is going to do it for you, it probably will. If you're reading Psalm 91 and you don't believe in God or Jesus, it's not going to help.
Have you come across anybody that you believe to be possessed? No.
No. No. I've been on investigations and public events where people claimed they were, but no.
Why didn't you? What led you to believe that they were not telling the truth?
Part of it is watching them throughout the night in other activity areas. Part of it also is when you're possessed, based on everything I've read, and some of the shows that I watch and following some of the exorcists, actual real living Catholic exorcists, there's a certain level of loss of cognitive ability and awareness of your situation. So if you're saying you're possessed and you're rolling your eyes in the back, to the back of your head, but you're kind of looking sideways to see if everyone's watching you,
Right.
You're not possessed.
Right.
And that's usually what I'm seeing is some physical behavior that indicates that they're acting out like
that
they're
makes more
possessed.
sense. So kind of watch them when
Nobody's watching.
Watch them when nobody's watching to see if this is all for show.
What about what's the doll's name? Is it Hannibal or
No, Annabelle.
Annabelle. Do you
Annabelle.
believe that? Do you believe
Which
that there's
part of that?
an actual doll? Do you
There
think
is.
spirits will? No, I know there's an actual doll. Do you believe the actual doll has got some bad juju to it?
Oh, yeah. I believe in bad juju big time. It was a very kindergarten
Right.
sounding phrase,
Big
wasn't
time.
it?
Where is
Yeah.
that doll at? It's like you
Definitely.
can go somewhere and see it. There's no way in hell
Yeah,
I'm
but
going
it's
around
behind glass. It's
I don't
at,
give two shits.
Elizabeth Warren's. Is she still alive?
Yeah. No, she passed last
Yeah.
year, I think.
It was at her house. They had it locked up.
there. Who's Elizabeth Warren?
She
It's
was
at
the
museum.
Is she a medium or was her husband, or were they just paranormal
Yes.
investigators?
She was a medium as well. They were paranormal investigators. Ed and Lorraine.
Ed and Lorraine.
Warren.
They actually investigated the Amityville horror house. They're the ones that did the Conjuring. They're the ones that did Annabelle. They're the godfathers of paranormal research.
Why would you take this doll to your house?
He took all of the haunted stuff that he came across and put it in his basement where it wasn't out there anymore.
Fuck that. Oof, that
Am
gives me the
I
heebie-jeebies.
right?
And yeah, that's right. And they do binding and protection spells and cleansing and that kind of thing to keep them contained. That's the theory. I would love to go check out their museum.
Hell.
It's one of those places. It's not open to the public on a regular Monday through Saturday basis type thing,
Where's
but
it
I
at?
think it'd be pretty cool. It's in Connecticut.
Thank
at
God
their
Michelle
home.
didn't know about that crap. I'd had to go to that.
But yeah, it's just a. So here's the real Annabelle doll there, Hefe. It's just a red-headed doll that they keep behind glass. It's not near as menacing as the movie. And then they've got warning: positively do not open on there.
So do they own the doll
Well,
or their estate?
they're dead now, but I'm assuming so.
Well, I tell you what, I bet their relatives ain't fighting
Yeah.
over their shit.
No.
Well, John Zaffis, the guy that did The Haunted Collector, he is actually their nephew.
Okay.
And some of the items that he uses on his show actually come from their investigations and out of the museum. And that's where a lot of, if you followed that show, when he took something, that's where it went, was there. And he's awesome. He is one of the nicest men I've ever met. We had a blast investigating with him. And that's highly unusual in those celebrity type events. But
What
he was
are they
awesome.
usually kind of boring, or are they kind of? What are these celebrities like that are in this field when you get to investigate with them?
It just really depends, The lower level celebrities that think they're bigger celebrities than they actually are
Really?
assholes every time. Their egos are so big, it's ridiculous. When anyone starts the conversation with, "Do you know who I am?" Like, no. I'm done at that point. And I don't follow the celebrities. I don't really care about the celebrities. John Zaffis was the first one that I ever got to investigate with that I actually liked. The three guys, what was the name of that show? I think the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. They're pretty okay. And the ones I really enjoy too, and I still get to see them around more in a friendship level versus an actual celebrity thing, are the guys from Deep South Paranormal, Randy Hardy and Kevin Betzer. They're a lot of fun because they're just normal guys. It's like going hunting with you guys when you're hanging with them. They just love doing it. And you get to do all of that. But I was trying to remember. Like, I won't go to those because you end up spending $150 to $200 for a ticket, and there's 200 people there, So it's not like you get to, and you can't really investigate with that level of noise and number of people moving around. So if I'm going to spend $200, I would rather spend the night at the Stanley in Colorado. I would rather get a group together and rent the Hill House out at Mineral Wells, that kind of thing. So that's
these events you go to. See, there's a lot of paranormal shows on, and I can watch them. I'm not a big fan because I don't like scary crap, but I understand because something's going to happen. Like you watch a Bigfoot show, you know what's going to happen. Ain't nobody ever going to see a fucking Bigfoot. I mean, it never happens. But when you do these shows, you see a lot. You hear a noise. I turn it off because it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Do you watch shows like that, Andy?
Yeah, I like to. I don't watch it year round, but yeah, when spooky season comes around, we turn the corner and it starts getting a little cooler outside. End of September, I'll dabble in a little bit of that.
So you don't mind the paranormal stuff?
No.
But the Conjuring stuff, you're out on.
Yeah, demonic stuff, I'm out on. I'm out on it just because. Yeah, I don't want to bring anything home.
I read up on the Minger just a minute ago, just some tidbits. One of the ghosts there is Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's what they said.
They say he stands at the bar, and they've heard him holler before at him. I've been there. My wife, one time, we were there, and we didn't even stay at the Minger. We were staying at the Hilton, and Michelle and me went to the Minger to have a drink, and we rode the trolley or the carriage over there, whatever it was, the horse, and got over there, went and had a drink. Next thing I know, we're going through the halls at midnight, and Michelle's wanting to walk down the halls because they're haunted. I'm like, listen, if we were staying here, awake. Yeah, it's no shit. She'd giggle and laugh. She'd been drinking some wine, giggling and laughing. I'm like, they're going to throw us out of here for just walking the halls. But she just thought it was the coolest place ever. And we've never stayed there, but I wouldn't mind staying there sometime. But we stayed at the Salem Inn in Salem, Mass, and I think it was built in 1690s or the early 1700s, and we stayed there for 3 or 4 nights one time. And supposedly it's got some haunted shit. And I heard of something creeping in the middle of the night, and I was like, fuck that. I ain't getting out there and looking.
Yeah.
I don't want to see nothing. I'd rather go back to bed. I do not want to see a ghost.
Well, that's like one of the hotels. Definitely. One of the hotels in Cleveland, the Liberty, is haunted. And that's another place I've investigated 2 or 3 times. And it's an experience. It's very low key. Another great place is the Dr. Pepper Museum in Waco, of all places.
What do you see there?
That was, there's a lot of different, it's a huge facility, number one. And when we got to investigate, we had like free reign. So we were in areas that the public's not necessarily going to be in. We, on the top floor, we were getting some interesting readings on our EMF, I think it was our periscope. One of our motion sensors was going off a little bit. And so I started doing a dowsing rod session to figure out who I was talking to. And I came up with some information from that dowsing rods session. I came up with the name Shorty, and I came up with the fact that he worked there, and he worked there in the 50s. Now, in 1953 or 54, Waco was almost obliterated by an F5 tornado. Okay. And the Dr. Pepper building was damaged during that tornado. And the area that we happened to be getting all of this activity and communication was on that corner of the building. And so I took a break and went downstairs, grabbed the laptop, and started doing the research, and was able to document that there was a guy that worked there. His name was Shorty. He was a truck driver for them. And the story goes that it was raining and starting to storm. So Shorty went out to move one of the trucks so that the other guy could go in and dry off. And that's when the tornado hit and crumbled that side of the building, and the bricks fell on top of the truck and crushed him. And so that really gave me chills. So I went back upstairs to do another session to verify more of this information, and happened to mention it to the lady there that works at the museum. And she's like, oh, yeah, Shorty, he definitely worked here. Let's go down. I'll show you a picture. And sure enough, there's a picture of all the employees taken earlier that year, and he is in there as Shorty. And so that dowsing rod session is actually part of the video they use to promote their haunted Dr. Pepper Museum tours.
What is this dowsing rod? How does it work? Like, you just ask yes, no questions, and then it bounces one way or the other?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. I prefer the copper rods. They tend to work better, and I like to have handles on mine so that it's not my energy moving them. And it lets them move more freely if you have the handles on there. And you just hold them out straight, and you ask yes, no questions. Mine is cross for yes, open for no. You can use whatever works for you. If you want to cross for no and open for yes, you can do that. You can also have them point both rods to where the spirit is standing, or point both rods to where the situation happened. You can use them to find them. It takes forever to actually ask a question like a name, because you end up going, does your first name begin with the letter A? Yes or no? So it takes a little bit. But once you get there, then you can move forward, and you can ask questions like, is the year 1950 to 1960? And then you can narrow it down. So that's one of the devices I use a lot for spirit communication.
That's the same rods they used to find water, isn't it?
Yeah, and graves.
And graves also. Definitely. I did not know that. I know water. I've seen my dad do it before.
The witching or water witching, isn't that what they call it?
Yep. Just take two rods and just bend them over and just till they cross, and suppose that's where water is.
Have you ever seen a spirit like as plain as day in a physical form?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
What is that like?
I have. The first time it happened, I was actually at the Palace Theater, and we sleep over a lot of times overnight because we'll be up investigating till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's an old theater. It was built in 1925. And at that time, they hadn't upgraded the electric panel. So you had to go into the breaker and use a screwdriver to pull the breaker down to turn the lights off, kind of situation. And I had gone in to do that. And when I turned off the lights, I turned back around, came out, and there was a man standing there, a very tall man, older man, thin, and he was wearing like a tuxedo with a bow tie and a black jacket and a white shirt and the pants. And I didn't think anything about it. Because I was tired. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. So I go back into the theater area, sleep for a couple of hours because I never sleep long, get up the next morning, and we're putting everything back because we're getting ready to leave. And Rachel and I are walking by. She's putting some things up, and I'm like, oh, thank God that lamp is there. And she was like, why? And so I told her what I saw, and she goes, I put that lamp there just now. There was nothing there last night. And so at that point, it was kind of freaky. That's when I realized I actually saw a full body apparition. So then it's like, damn, I wish I'd have realized that last night or this morning. I've had that happen. I've had more of the shadow type things. When you're in the basement at the Palace Theater, there's a lot of activity down there. And one of the things that I had seen, wasn't aware other people were seeing, was a pair of legs walking up the steps. And it's like, there's no light coming into that basement. There's one light bulb in the middle of the basement. The door is to the far left. You have to go down like a 2 to 3 foot little hallway and then turn and come down the stairs. So there's no light coming in. And the legs are always going up. They're never coming down the stairs into the basement. They're always going up and leaving it. And they're just dark, fully formed legs from the knee down. You can tell that he's wearing dress shoes with a cuffed trouser leg. And we've had several people see that. So then it was like, okay, good. If they're seeing it, I'm not crazy.
Yeah, it's almost better that other people do see it. That way you're like, whew.
What about?
Thought I was losing my mind.
You hear stories of people picking up hitchhikers and stuff, or seeing a lady on the side of the road in places, and the lady got killed in a car wreck there 50 years earlier, and people see her standing on the side of the road. Michelle had surgery 30 years ago. She had a brain tumor, and she was at the hospital, and we went in like at 3:00 in the morning. They start prepping her for surgery, and we go in. We was there before that. It was like midnight, 1:00. So, anyways, we go in there, and it's 2 beds. They have a bed for me to get in there. Well, I get there, and I'm laying down, and I hear a lady come in. I got my back to her, and a lady comes in. I hear her and Michelle talking, and she gives Michelle her IV, and she leaves. Well, like 15 minutes later, this nurse comes in. She goes, "I'm here to give you your IV." And Michelle's like, "The lady come in and did it." She goes, "Oh, who did it?" She goes, "Lady's name was Angel or something. I think it's Angel was the name." And the lady's like, "Huh? Who?" She comes back in with another lady. She goes, "Who gave you your IV?" She goes, "Angel." She goes, "We don't have nobody else here." To this day, they don't know who ever gave Michelle that IV. And,
oh my gosh!
Just a random person walking around giving IVs and shit out.
Well, Mom was dreading it too because she
hates them.
I've got terrible veins and they never can. They got to stick me 100 times, and she's like, "No, I'll get it the first time. Don't worry, baby." And she did it, and she was like, "That didn't hurt at all." And she was like, "Yeah, I'm good at it. I can do it."
The lady, and I heard the lady talking to Michelle, but I never looked at. My back was turned. Never even looked up. And I mean, we're going to be in and out of this room 1,000 times today. People are. And then when those ladies come in, I'm like, "Well, that's fucking weird." I mean, it's like a really weird deal. And there's still to this day, they never ever found out who gave Michelle that IV.
That is crazy. And you know what? I think you really, once you start talking paranormal and experiences like that, almost everyone you talk to has something that could have been a paranormal experience, whether it's seeing the angel in the car or Michelle's nurse or IV angel, I think there's a lot more instances of it out there.
Well, Michelle's
than
deal
people
had a
realize.
lot more evidence than mine. Mine just made me look like I was fucking crazy.
Yeah, she had an IV to show for hers.
Yeah, all I did was had a story of me come in like, "Listen, I almost died."
She had a painless IV and some befuddled other nurses that could not find who was walking around this place putting in IVs that didn't hurt people.
But
she was all worked up about the IV. She's like, they pricked me 1,000 times to find a vein, and she nonchalantly like, "No, don't worry, baby. I'll get this done. I'll get it done the first time."
And I think the lady's name was Angel. Is what she told. "My name's Angel." It's something, and I think that's who it was, because there was more to it than just that. There's a nurse, Mabel, is an old lady that supposedly haunts our hospital in Knox City. She was an old nurse here, and she died years ago. And they say her spirit, they hear noises and stuff. And they've always talked about that.
I think I'm too closed off. I can't think of anything.
I'll tell you a funny story, Georgina, since you knew Dad real well. I get a call. Dad was in the hospital up here, and I don't remember what had happened to him, but he was in the hospital, but it was nothing major, but he had to spend the night. I get a call like at 11 o'clock at nighttime, and the nurse says, "Jeff, can you come up here and help us with your dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on?" "Well, he's walking around naked. Dad, they gave him some medicine. He was looking to do laundry. He's walking up and down the hospital in the halls, buck naked, looking to do laundry." So maybe Mabel got Dad turned on. I don't know.
Well, and then you've also seen the soldier and the dog, and you've seen.
Yeah, I've had a couple.
You're more open than I am.
I've had a couple of things. I've had a couple encounters on some shit.
I think I'm too closed off.
I saw something one time. It was a full guy in a soldier's uniform, and he just disappeared. There's a farm down here, and I'm not going to mention the people's name because they may not want everybody to know this, but there's a guy that lives in the country outside of here. It's got a real nice place, and he's got a video footage, and it looks like a soldier from World War II in his barn. Just right there.
Oh,
just
wow.
plain as day, you can see it. No answer to what it is. I'll tell you off there who it is. But I've seen the picture and stuff too, and it looks just like a World War II. And you always have those people that can screw with people, that can do a hoax. They know how to Photoshop and stuff. But this looks like a ghost image of a guy in his suit.
When you were at the palace, did the guy look like he was standing there, or could you like kind of see through him? or is it too late to recall that?
He was very, very monochrome,
Yeah.
black and gray, you know, but it was pretty solid, but just enough that, you know, it was one of those things where like, nah,
Right.
you're just seeing things. You know, there was no color to him as far as I knew it was a tuxedo because of the bow tie and the cut of the jacket. And I really don't remember him being very translucent. The first one I ever saw, I thought he was the first one, but he wasn't. When I worked in Mansfield, I hated that job so bad. It was the job from hell. I would spend my lunch hours down at the city cemetery working with spirit communication softwares and things like that, just dowsing rod sessions. You know, that's the way I was relieving the stress at the time. And I had just pulled up into the cemetery, and this was probably July or August because it was hot. And I was getting my stuff gathered up because I always carry a digital recorder, and I was using my phone with one of the spirit communication software apps I use is called Necrophonic. And I always take a notebook and pen with me so I can document things. And I'm gathering that up, and I caught movement in front of my Jeep just out of the corner of my eye. And when I looked up, there's an African American man walking across in front of me. And he's wearing a long sleeve tan shirt, like a work shirt, like a Dickies type thing, and dark blue pants. And I was like, I just kind of glanced back down because, you know, I'm in the cemetery, it's public property. And then I realized it's August and this man is wearing long sleeve work shirt, very much Navy mechanic or a mechanic type uniform. So I get out of the Jeep, look back up, and he's gone. Literally gone, nowhere in the cemetery. And I'm actually up toward the front of the cemetery, so I should still be able to see him because I got out of the Jeep so quick. He was gone. And that was odd. And it's one of those things, as I was thinking back through, of course, the first thing I did was went where I saw him start walking across the road, and there was a tombstone there of a military guy. And I can't remember his name down. It's written down in one of my notebooks. So there was a military burial there. I don't know if the man was African American or not, but he just disappeared very quick. And one of the things I realized was he didn't have feet. When I go back and thought through what I saw, even though I could see the colors and the layout in his hair, he had no feet. He had no shoes, no feet. And that's pretty common when people see full body apparitions. They're missing body parts because they just don't fully manifest is the belief. So that was pretty interesting.
And you know, that's one thing, like you see people every day. So it's like bumping into somebody you don't expect. That is fairly common, and you're just kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, and you go on about your day. And it's not until after that you think, well, wait a second. That was weird. What was a guy in a full tuxedo doing at 3 o'clock in the morning and watching me turn off the light?
Yeah.
But, or what's a guy doing in the cemetery? It's like, well, I mean, I'm in the cemetery. Why can't somebody else be in the cemetery?
Exactly. And it's like the guy at the Palace Theater in the tuxedo, I was actually able to go back. They have the Chamber of Commerce put together like a book of historical families, and I was actually able to find the guy's picture. And that was awesome. And it was J.C. Chapman Jr., who was the owner of the theater at the time. And so he very much would have been in character for during life. If somebody were turning off lights at 3 a.m., he was going to be there to see what was going on with that. And so that was pretty cool. Like I say, it's these confirmations that I love and that make me feel like my experience was credible.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So what do you do at these conferences?
A variety of things. Usually I'm talking on a paranormal topic. I'm either talking about an investigation, an investigative technique. I also have recently been doing a lot of talks on tulpas. That's an interesting thing that may be contributing to paranormal experience or the belief that someone has experienced paranormal as well. So that's usually what I'm doing. Tulpas, T-U-L-P-A. And a tulpa, it's originally a meditative practice of some monks in Tibet. And the thought process behind their meditation was that they could create an energetic being and send that energetic being out from themselves to do more good in the world. Okay. So that was the original practice of, it's a Tibetan word, like 16 inches long with lots of vowels and stuff. So I can't pronounce it. Okay. Just trust me on that one. But in the early 1900s, there was, I'm going to see if I can remember her name, Madame Blavatsky or something along those lines. She very much became involved in the spiritualist world and became like a spiritual guru type person. And she is the one that first kind of came across this meditative practice and then brought it into her spiritual domain, if you will, and teachings. And basically, you can sit down through meditation and create a different being, like a sentient being in your mind. And so it's like living with another being in your mind. You'll have to hit the Reddit forums on that. It'll freak you out a little bit. It's definitely a rabbit hole. And so where I came across this in the paranormal field was, okay, so many people will tell you that the paranormal is just in your head. It just like you've told Jeff. Are you tired? Yeah. Okay. But at the same time, if these people are doing this, then they don't necessarily have a spiritual attachment. They created that being themselves. And so I've been doing some research on that and presenting some of that finding and information. So it gets interesting when you go out on these paranormal investigations trying to figure out people's motivations. And I've found that one tends to fit in a couple of categories.
So the tulpas, is this a way of like creating the life that you want? Because I'm very much a believer of like put it out in the universe and it'll happen. Is it that kind of thing, or is this, or you're creating a totally different being?
You're creating a totally separate being that has its own thoughts, separate from your thoughts, its own behavior, separate from your behavior. Are you familiar with a golem?
No.
The Jewish
I don't
golem?
think so.
Okay. In the Jewish metaphysical world, there is the belief that you can create a golem with prayer and what do they call them? Rabbis doing a prayer. And basically they take clay and sand and water and build a little being, if you will. Everyone you ever see in a movie looks like a monster.
Yeah,
okay?
It looks kind of like a Bigfoot, kind of, if you just glance at it.
And they create that using those spiritual incantations and prayers for a specific purpose. And it may be to protect this particular household. And once that household is protected, the golem dissolves and goes away. It's done. With the tulpa, it's the meditative aspect of it is similar to those spiritual prayers and incantations to create it, but they never kill it off because it doesn't have an intention. It's just, in fact, what they found when they did psychological studies on this is mostly it was lonely people creating an imaginary friend, but it actually becomes energetic. And the theory is that you can eventually create it so strongly that it can move outside of your body and create and do its own thing. Kind of like the Thin Man is one that they talk about kind of being a tulpa, because so many people kind of believe it exists, but it really doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, this is where it kind of gets deep. And, I'm not a psychologist. This is just all the reading and stuff. There are actually books out there telling you how to do this. Now, I'll tell you, I'll never be able to do it because I'm too ADD and I don't have time to sit that long,
right. So you're meditating and then you create this other thing. So when you're meditating, you have basically a friend for the people that do it whenever they're lonely.
Right. And so they're basically sitting there visualizing and creating, I want a My Little Pony looking tulpa. And it's going to have purple hair and it's going to live in this environment. and they end up, in theory, creating this. Now, like I said, I've not experienced it, but I have met some people that I'm wondering if that's what they think, what they refer to as a spiritual attachment actually is something they've created themselves versus an actual entity.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
That's
a lot.
fascinating stuff, though.
It's interesting. I'll be happy to send you the books if you want to read up on it.
I trust you. I've been doing a little bit of research on here as we've been going. But yeah, the Tibetan monks do it. I wonder why they first started doing it. Was it because they had time on their hands, or were they lonely, or what? Because they don't talk. Are the monks the one that don't talk?
Yes.
It depends on which monks it is. Now, the monks in the original creation of tulpas, they did it with the intention of they couldn't leave the mountain monastery. And so that was their way of putting more of a positive presence out there. That was their thought process.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this has been a fascinating podcast. I say I want to go, but I don't really want to go, but it would be interesting to go with you one time. But
I think it would be really interesting.
I get scared easy. So I think that's why I don't see anything, is just because I'm just like,
I think that's a very big understatement. I have seen Andy carry his wife through a haunted house and push her at the things that jump out at him.
Jeff, you always, I've gone through this. You protect your lady's backside. You don't want you don't want anything sneaking up on her from the back. When hard. You watch all the scary movies, where do they get them from? They get them from the back.
You've got her covered there for sure.
That's where you got to be.
I don't think they sacrificed them by throwing them at the
demons. I didn't
sacrifice
her. I picked her up so that we could move faster.
Well, Georgina, we appreciate it, and I guess we'll see you the last weekend of January.
Yes, you will.
We can see if Ron's raiding our pantry out here.
We look really forward to. I look forward to it. I've really enjoyed this podcast. We'd like to have you on again and talk about more stuff. There's a lot more stuff for us to cover here. But thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good to see y'all.
God bless you, my friend.
Bye.
Interesting lady. Very interesting podcast. I saw a guy gave us a reference on one of the Facebook pages that we were not a waterfowl podcast. Well, we are a waterfowl podcast, but we are more than a waterfowl, because most waterfowl hunters have other interests other than just waterfowl hunting. Excellent.
Like just happened?
Yep. Very excellent lady. Yeah, just like the other day.
Oh, but not while we were doing this.
No.
Have you seen, where'd that go? Oh no, what happened?
What'd you do?
I had a video pulled up for whenever, there it is. Have you seen this video, Jeff? Now this is probably going to freak you out. And it might be bullshit. I don't know. But we'll figure this out together. Okay. Let me drag it over there. Let's see if we can get some sound on this thing. Uh-oh, I got a bug in my shoe. Oh, there we go. All right. Security guard. It has not been edited, which means it has definitely been edited. I don't like all this
music.
Yeah.
I don't have the balls to be a cop. I couldn't do this shit.
Hold on. I'm going to find a different one because I don't know
So,
why. Okay.
What'd you make me watch?
I'm going to find a different one because I didn't realize that had all that fucking music to it.
John says he hears the screaming coming from that room. And I hear it too.
Oh, Jesus.
But we're sure that no one's checked into that room, correct?
He's waiting for backup.
So just wait.
John,
we're
wait.
Get a hold of the police. So I would wait for the police, John.
Listen to him, John.
Oh, God almighty. My...
John's going to enter the room real quick just to check, make sure, see what's going on. Wait one.
Turn the lights on, John.
That's always the part of the scary movie I don't understand.
Turn the fucking lights on, John. Oh, I sure did. Oh, shit. Did you see it?
Okay, Amy, John wants you to call the police right now if you don't mind.
already had them coming.
He says no one's in there, but that all of the furniture's been turned upside down, and the hold on. He says the carpet's been ripped up and that the shower is on.
This is the scariest video on the internet.
Yeah, John.
I couldn't be a security guard.
I've seen the videos.
I'm
from
sure
the,
that's fake. I guarantee you that's most likely fake.
I've seen the videos from the Dollar General in Haskell. You not ever seen those?
I think Harry
You can,
might have showed me.
you can see a shadow walking down the freaking deals and stuff falling off the shelves.
Now I'm sure a lot of that's probably hokey pokey and a little bit of trick photography and stuff. But
Are you opening that door, Andy? If you hear them screaming inside?
fuck no, I'm not.
Hey, so you're gonna let some poor lady get?
Shit, you can tell that's not a lady, Jeff. You can tell.
So it's a guy. So it's okay.
No. That's not a person.
Oh, okay.
We're not opening that door.
We're just gonna leave it there.
You know that hotel security guard has no gun. Like he's just got that flashlight. That's it.
exactly.
That's all he's got.
I'll pull my light on you.
Right. And then you can see that the furniture's turned upside down from the fucking hallway. Like all you gotta do is open that door and you can see what's going on. But no, there is not a shot in hell I'm opening that door. Whatever's going on in there can wait until the police get here.
You big chicken.
I'm just telling you like it is. I'm not doing that.
All right, and for everybody football related,
Yeah.
you need to go to the Big Honker Podcast private page, and we have Nate Cold Iron has put up a link.
I'll pin that to the top so it'll be easy to.
For you to join a Pick'em League. We have a Pick'em. We have a Survivor Pool, and we do a.
That's it.
No, I thought we had one more that we did a weekly deal with the.
That's the pick'em.
No, we have a Pick'em. We have the
Survivor
Pool, and we also have a weekly DraftKings ones or something we did. We have two, or we have three. Three things you join. I think it's $20 a piece. We throw in $100 swag to the winner. Winner takes it all. And it's Survivor Pool.
I've made it a grand total of 4 fucking weeks in the 2 years that we've been doing this on the Survivor Pool.
So this week we're shooting for 5 weeks, right?
No, like I've made it like 2 weeks and then like.
So 3 weeks would be a win for you
it's
this
early.
year.
It's always an early. If I can make it to October, I'll be happy being in the Survivor Pool.
So, anyways, we are going to have all that is available. It's $20 a person. It's on but you have to be a member of the Big Honker Podcast group page, and not just the Big Honker Podcast page, but the group page. There's almost 8,000 people in there. Join it. Join the league. It's $20 a person. Pays out the end of the year. It's an interesting thing. You've got to prepay. If you don't prepay, you're not going to join. So if you're going to ask,
Cold Iron has a Venmo, so just Venmo him $20 per league you want to join into, and don't be that guy.
Yep. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all, and have a great week.
We talked waterfowl yesterday, I think. No, we didn't. Okay, go check out our sponsors. Go check out Double T British Kennels. They are putting out some great dogs right now. Mossberg, Stanfield Outfitters, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, Hemp Hill Farms. I've got a bunch of owies, so I'm lathered in that stuff. Ducks Unlimited, Lucky Ducks, Looking Glass Podcast, Shin Gear, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Pacific Calls, and Boss Shot Shells.